Now, if you haven't heard, the USGS indicates the first major silver supplying nation, Mexico, is going to deplete its silver reserves as soon as 2026. The quality of the ore is declining, which could mean that mines could become depleted even sooner. Let's get started. This table is provided by the USGS. It shows us global silver mining output by country through 2020. The area we're interested in is Mexico, which is by far the largest silver producer in the world. In 2020, they produced 5,600 metric tons of silver, which accounted for 22% of world mine production. Reserves to the right indicate there are just 37,000 tons of silver remaining in Mexico as of 2020. Divided by annual output, those reserves run out somewhere around 2026, right? Actually, it's wrong. This interpretation has been going around lately on Zero Hedge and Seeking Alpha, but the analysis is flawed. I'm not saying that Mexico won't run out of silver. They will, and soon. But just not according to these reports, not in 2026. Let's talk a little bit about what a reserve is. Again, going to the USGS, that part of the reserve base that could be economically extracted or produced at the time of determination. Simply put, reserves are an engineering number that are based on economic viability. In reality, small concentrations of silver can be found in numerous locations, but mining them may not be economically feasible at present. For example, there are enormous amounts of silver dissolved in the ocean's seawater. Some estimates suggest there is more silver dissolved in seawater than the total amount of silver ever mined throughout history. But the cost of extraction would be astronomical. You'd need to process something like 12.5 million liters of seawater to get just 1 gram of silver. It's not economically viable. The same goes for some deposits on Earth, which are just not viable given current prices. You hear people say this all the time, that there's silver everywhere. This is true, but the important part that's left out is the cost of extraction is greater than the current silver price, and in many cases, it will never be viable. Therefore, the projected depletion timeline for silver is contingent on current reserves and prices. If the price of silver were to double, for instance, mining operations would become economically viable on lower grade ores. It's important to bring into the conversation the lengthy process of starting up a new mine. When taking into account exploration, pre-feasibility studies, feasibility studies, planning and permitting, construction, and final production, it can be anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And that's if miners can get the funding, which can reach hundreds of millions of dollars, and are willing to take on the risk of nationalization. To nationalize a mine means to transfer ownership and control of a privately owned mining operation to the government or state. It involves the government taking over the assets, operations, and management of the mine. Now back to our flawed reports of the Great Silver Panic of 2026. What's wrong with it? You see, that reserves number of 37,000 hasn't been revised recently, and in fact, not in a very long time. You can go back to 2019, 2017, 2015. You can go back all the way to 2009, where reserves are still shown as 37,000 tons. It's difficult to really know where Mexico is in its reserves. No doubt, significant new mine production has come online as deposits became viable with higher silver prices. According to the methodology of said articles, Mexico's silver should have run out by now. It's my opinion that there's greater risk to production in the near term than peak silver. Due to the concentration of the world's silver reserves in countries where the likelihood of a mine becoming nationalized is high, there's an added level of caution when considering the risk of initiating new mining ventures. And furthermore, considering that the majority of those are BRICS, or soon-to-be BRICS nations, the risk of an unfriendly business climate is even higher. The world seems to be on the path of a multipolar world, and if that trajectory continues as it's going, then we can assume that those nations will become pushed hard up into their respective corners of their ring. It's simple supply-demand economics. The price has to go up if supply goes down. All this bodes well for silver. With increasing demand from investment, EVs, and photovoltaics, together with decreasing mine output, the only way for silver price to go in the long term is up, in my opinion. There's already a silver deficit, with demand outstripping mining production and recycling combined. It has been for years, and all things being the same, will continue for the indefinite future. With all these things considered, I believe we're now in a silver bull market. And just like you can get thrown by a rodeo bull, this market will throw off weak hands. With a 5 to 10 year time horizon, it's my opinion that holding physical silver and gold looks very attractive as a buy with a limited downside. Well, I hope you got something useful out of that. If you did, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. We'll see you next time.